long before Athens or Rome, long before the famous philosophers and legendary legions, there was a forgotten island empire that built magnificent palaces, sophisticated plumbing, and breathtaking art far beyond its time. Who were these people? They were the Minoans, and their story is one of the most fascinating and mysterious in all of history. How did Europe's first advanced civilization rise to such heights, only to vanish, seemingly without a trace? Join me as we journey back more than 4,000 years to the sun-drenched island of Crete. Here, in the heart of the Aegean Sea, a remarkable culture flourished. Forget what you think you know about the ancient world. The Minoans weren't warriors obsessed with conquest. They were traders, artists, and engineers. Their cities didn't have massive defensive walls. Why? Because their power wasn't on land, it was on the sea. Their fleet was the most powerful in the Mediterranean, connecting them to Egypt, the Near East, and the Greek mainland. This maritime dominance brought them immense wealth and a vibrant exchange of ideas. Imagine walking through the grand palace of Knossos. This wasn't just a king's residence. It was a sprawling, multi-story complex covering 6 acres. It was a labyrinth of royal apartments, workshops, and massive storage rooms filled with giant clay jars. Or pythoi that held olive oil, wine, and grain. The walls were adorned with stunning frescoes, vibrant paintings of leaping dolphins, graceful griffins, and athletic figures vaulting over charging bulls. This famous bull-leaping art has puzzled historians for decades. Was it a sport? A religious ritual? We still don't know for sure, but it speaks to a culture deeply connected with the natural world and unafraid of its power. And the engineering, it was simply astounding. The Minoans had one of the world's first advanced plumbing systems. Terracotta pipes brought fresh water into their palaces, while a sophisticated drainage system carried away waste. They even had what might be considered the first flush toilets. Think about that. While much of the world lived in simple huts, the Minoans enjoyed comforts that wouldn't become common in Europe for another 3,000 years. This level of urban planning and sanitation shows an incredible understanding of engineering and a deep concern for public health and quality of life. Unlike many ancient societies we know, the Minoan world seems to have been remarkably peaceful and perhaps even egalitarian. Their art rarely depicts scenes of war or conquest. Instead, it celebrates nature, community, and ceremony. Women feature prominently and powerfully in their art, often depicted as priestesses or goddesses, leading many experts to believe that Minoan society held women in very high regard, possibly even being a matriarchal or at least a matriarchal culture. This stands in stark contrast to the heavily patriarchal societies that would later dominate the region, like the Mycenaeans and the classical Greeks. They worshipped a powerful mother goddess, a deity of nature, fertility, and the hunt, often symbolized by snakes and bulls. So, where did it all go? How does a civilization so advanced, so wealthy, and so influential just disappear? For a long time, the leading theory was a cataclysmic natural disaster. Around 1600 BCE, the nearby volcanic island of Thera, now known as Santorini, erupted in one of the largest volcanic explosions in human history. The blast was hundreds of times more powerful than a hydrogen bomb. It triggered massive tsunamis that would have devastated the coastal towns and fleets of northern Crete. The sky would have been black with ash for days, poisoning crops and leading to widespread famine. This single event could have crippled the Minoan civilization, breaking their sea power and leaving them vulnerable. For a while, this theory seemed to explain everything. The end was swift, dramatic, and absolute. But history is rarely that simple. More recent archaeological evidence suggests that while the eruption of Thera was devastating, it wasn't the final blow. Many Minoan sites show signs of recovery and continued habitation for another 150 years after the eruption. The final collapse, around 1450 BCE, seems to have been different. At Knossos and other major sites, we find evidence of destruction by fire, but this time it looks less like a natural disaster and more like a human one. At the same time, a new culture begins to appear on Crete. The Mycenaeans from mainland Greece. These were a much more militaristic people, the same ones Homer wrote about in the Iliad. Their writing system, known as Linear B, starts appearing on clay tablets found at Knossos, replacing the still undeciphered Minoan script, Linear A. It seems the final chapter of the Minoans was not written by a volcano, but by invasion and conquest. Weakened by the Thera eruption and its aftermath, the once great island empire likely fell to its aggressive mainland neighbors. The Mycenaeans occupied Knossos, adapting the palace for their own use. But they couldn't sustain the complex trade networks and sophisticated culture they had conquered. The golden age of Crete was over. The memory of the Minoans faded, surviving only in whispers and legends, most famously in the Greek myth of King Minos, his labyrinth, and the fearsome Minoan. For thousands of years, that myth was all that remained. It was only in the early 20th century that archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans began excavating at Knossos, uncovering the breathtaking reality behind the legend. He was the one who named them after the mythical King Minos. Today, the Minoans stand as a powerful reminder that history is full of lost chapters. They were pioneers of art, architecture, and trade, creating a society of incredible complexity and beauty. They show us that there are many ways to build a civilization, not all of them based on warfare and domination. Their story, pieced together from silent ruins and undeciphered texts, continues to fascinate and inspire us. A lost empire, a volcanic cataclysm, and a culture that celebrated life with a vibrancy we can still feel today. The Minoans may have vanished, but their legacy endures, buried beneath the soil of Crete. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. What part of the Minoan mystery fascinates you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration of lost empires, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. Thanks for watching.